Hi, Mick McQuaid here to talk to you about the ACID principles. So we can talk about computing systems in a couple of ways. One way is to categorize them as being either data intensive or compute intensive. And we're only interested in data intensive systems in this course. And by the way, a good resource on data intensive systems is Martin Kleppmann's 2017 book, Designing Data Intensive Applications, a really classic book. Data-intensive systems can be further categorized, and one way is to categorize them as being either OLAP or OLTP. OLAP standing for online analytic processing, and those are usually denormalized data warehouses. And OLTP stands for online transaction processing systems, and that's what we're concerned with in this course. Because OLTP systems mostly rely on relational databases. And these relational databases must obey 4 principles to work correctly. And those 4 principles are usually known by the acronym ACID. And ACID stands for atomicity, consistency, isolation, and durability. So atomicity means that each transaction is treated as a single unit. So I mentioned before that if you withdraw money from one account to put it in another account, you want to think of the withdrawal and the depositing as one transaction, say a transfer. If you were to withdraw the money from one account and then the database system failed and the money is now in limbo somewhere, you don't have it and you don't get it, that's a disaster. So we want the transactions to be treated as a single unit, and it's either going to succeed completely or it's going to fail completely, and we have to do it over. The second principle is consistency, that ensures that a transaction brings the database from one valid state to another so that there are no invalid states reached in the database. A transaction doesn't create an invalid state through disobeying rules, constraints, or triggers. We're not dealing with triggers in this class. And then isolation is the third principle. So we haven't been concerned about this one because we're using a single user database, but it should be the case that 2 people can do transactions at the same time. For example, 2 people are reserving seats in an airline at the same time, and they each behave as if they were the only one in the system. And once a transaction is committed, it remains committed, even in the event of a system crash, power failure, or error. The changes are permanently stored, usually by something called write-ahead logging. There are different techniques for durability. Why do we care about ACID? Because the database has to maintain data integrity. We may have multiple users trying to do things at the same time. We may have power outages. We may have hardware failures and other things that interfere with database integrity. And the ACID properties ensure data integrity, and they are the goal of any relational database management system. And we haven't been concerned with them in the projects for this class because you're running single user projects. You don't have a concern for concurrency. We assume you back up your data and you know the state of the data if there's a power failure or hardware failure or the like. And in a multi-user setting, we can't make these assumptions. Now, believe it or not, the people who designed NoSQL databases coined a term base to be the opposite of ACID. It's the chemical opposite. So that was why they chose that word. Questionable choice. Base means basically available, soft state, and eventually consistent. And the idea of base is that the system should be always available. It's more important that it be available than that it be consistent. And this is true of social media apps, which are, used by literally billions of people and are always available, although they're not always consistent. And Wikipedia describes both of these things. Okay, now another term that you're going to encounter in more advanced database classes is CAP, the CAP theorem. The CAP theorem says that in a distributed database system, so a distributed database system has the database occurring on multiple machines. So no one machine holds the entire database. Part of the database is on one machine, part of the database is on another machine. So if in a distributed database system, we can guarantee only two of the three letters in CAP, which are consistency, availability, and partition tolerance. And these distributed database systems are the opposite of what we've been talking about in this course. They occur when the database is divided among many machines. And partition tolerance means the way the data is partitioned among the various machines that it's on to account for when communication between the machines fails. Okay, so that's all that I want to say about ACID and CAP, and base for that matter. And that does it for week 9, I think. And so on to week 10. Thanks for watching.